Do you suffer from anxiety, from depression, maybe even chronic pain? Well, listen up. Truth Be Told is going to tell you about a breakthrough program built on over 100 years of therapies used in America's returning veterans to help you successfully overcome PTSD, anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. The secret proven in study after study. Music therapy. The effects of music are nothing short of amazing. From strokes to PTSD, music has been shown to improve the quality of life. Now, one of the latest music therapy programs being used in America's veteran hospitals can be yours to experience for free, at home, and to help your own anxiety attacks, pain, and depression. Or just relax after a hard day. It's called Whole Tones. It takes music therapy to a new level. This revolutionary program makes use of specifically designed frequencies that have been shown to stimulate your body's natural healing power down to a cellular level. If it works for battle-scarred vets, can it work for you? Well, experience it for yourself for free at sweetwholetones.com. Like Tony Sweet, that's SWEET. Go to sweetwholetones.com. Now enjoy the show.
What's your thoughts on government cover-ups or covert societies attempting to control humanity? Do you believe in ancient astronauts, intergalactic communication, or extraterrestrial visitations? Ever had an experience with disembodied spirits or the paranormal universe? Are these subjects fact or fiction? Each week, Tony and Eddie explore these unbelievable realities and beyond. Exclusively on Truth Be Told.
Hello and welcome to this week's broadcast of Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. I'm your host, Tony Sweet.
And I'm Eddie Connor. And with us in studio is our guest co-host, Walt Lusk.
Well, we are thrilled to have back with us Emmy Award-winning producer and investigative reporter, Linda Moulton Howe, and she is going to be on our first 2-hour special.
Ooh, and we can't wait. Now, as you might remember, during our last visit with Linda, she truly had our audience on the edge of their seats when she spoke about cattle mutilations. And now she brings us more of her in-depth research on topics that most people don't speak about during their daily lives, but we certainly do here on Truth Be Told.
You'll also recognize Linda from her informative talks on Coast to Coast AM. Because of her expertise, she is often sought for, such as Ancient Aliens, and also numerous other radio and television outlets from around the world.
Tonight, our fans will effortlessly tour the universe with Linda as she informs the world about events happening right here, right now as we speak. Some of these events are everything from extraterrestrials to other unknown cover-ups that she's always bravely shedding her investigative light upon. Plus, you can gain even more in-depth information and insight by visiting her website at earthfiles.com. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please put your Truth Be Told hands together and welcome back author, producer, and investigator Linda Moulton Howe.
Yay. Linda is back. Hi, Linda. Happy Thanksgiving.
Hi, thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much. We are all so excited. We've been looking forward to this ever since we booked you like over a month ago. We couldn't wait till it happened, and you're back, and so much to talk about. 2 hours is going to go very quickly. So let's just go ahead and get started. Before we get into some of the topics we talked about previously, I want to get into what's hot now. What's on your website that just came out, hot off the presses?
What's on the radar?
Yeah, what's on the radar?
Well, back 2011, January, was the first time I started getting literally hundreds of reports from around, first, the United States and Canada, and then I was getting them from all over the world about people reporting strange booms that shook houses, shook windows, even cracked sidewalks, and yet authorities that would go to investigate could find nothing. And over 2011 to 2015, they have come in cycles of intensity. This year began with 15 states in 2 weeks reporting booms where police and fire and 911, everybody is out investigating, and they were covered in television and radio, and I've reported about this at Earth Files. Well, this morning, I started going through emails and found one from Chicago from somebody who said, did you know what happened here yesterday at about noontime? And the story is that hundreds, maybe thousands of calls started going into Chicago police stations at about noontime yesterday, Thanksgiving Day. And people were reporting hearing a rumbling boom. Rumbling was the adjective that everybody was using. Rumbling boom that shook their houses, shook the ground outside. And when the fire and the police started looking everywhere these reports were, they could not find anything physical. And it started going out in television and radio headlines as what was the mysterious, unexplained boom at noon today in Chicago. Now, today, I am reading that story, and it's like so many that I've received over the last 4 to 5 years. And then you come to how the Will County Sheriff's Office in Illinois decided that they had an answer today. And they said it was two men doing target practice.
Only two.
With two men.
Oh, yeah.
Target practice with guns. And I'm reading this, and what hit me is law enforcement today they're just desperate to make things go away. They want you and me and the media off their backs. They're dealing with so many problems. And you guys and our audiences, Earth Files and yours, know the two men target practicing are not going to cause houses to shake and the ground to shake all over a suburb of Chicago.
Even if they had two cannons that were practicing with, I don't think that would have mattered.
Right.
So after I got that and started, I put up a headline, and I'm going to be reporting more. Here came email after email after email today from Kentucky, from Kansas, and Florida. Very strange booms. And one is a metallic sound. And that metallic scraping sound has been one of the most fascinating. It's been reported in Canada. It's been reported throughout the United States, Mexico, Central America, South America, Australia, New Zealand. What in the world is this scraping sound? It's not the melodic trumpets, but it has overtones so that it's not just like a scrape sound. It's a complex sound. I have many audio tape recordings, and it is so eerie and disturbing. Every time I hear this, it's disturbing. And what does all of this add up to? I wish I could give you an answer.
You have no clue? No hint?
I'm telling you, it has ranged everything from people saying, well, maybe we're overlapping with another dimension. How would we prove it if that were true? Others are saying, well, maybe Jehovah is coming back. How would we prove that? In other words, people are reaching for bizarre explanations in some cases. I did do a series of reports about, one, a whistleblower, and two, about a man who is tied in with corporations who are working in the oil industry, and they are very concerned about what they think are changes that are going on in the core of our Earth that are related. And this is not new age. This is hard physical oil industry concerns today, that we may be headed toward a pole flip. If this century, it will be the first time in 786,000 years. When you go back over the history of pole flips before 786,000 years ago, and they can tell by looking at ash in the bottom of lakes and various rocks, they can tell when the magnetic fields have changed from south to north, north to south. Up to 786,000 years ago, it was about every 200,000 years.
Oh, I thought it was 600. It was 200,000? Oh,
Yeah,
they were way overdue.
100,000 years. So now, exactly, we're way overdue. What no one on this planet knows, including any scientist, what exactly is the relationship between a dynamically changing core that is changing enough to make the North Pole now in the Arctic go to the Antarctic, and vice versa, the Antarctic pole, South Pole go to the North. It's a magnetic field change. And that, a paper this year from a professor at the University of Berkeley, that they now, based on looking at lava ash in Italy, found that 786,000 years ago, when that last pole change occurred, in 100 years, that was all it took for the pole shift to be. It built up over 2,000 years. Well, so what if we're at the tail end in the 21st century of a 2,000-year buildup, and that we're now going to move into increasingly bizarre changes that have to do with nature and the dynamic of this planet, but that we're going to be a surface life living through it. There were no humans 786,000 years ago.
Right.
So what will happen? How dangerous will it be for birds and marine animals that are dependent upon magnetic field lines? Will we start seeing tremendous disorientations? Some scientists think we will, some do not. What will happen to humans? The big thing is not so much mental disorientation as it is this. As the magnetic fields, the north and the south, are getting ready for this collapse, let's say it happens in a century, there will be weakening. It goes down to zero. That means that our planet, based on what happened last time, we would lose for periods of time the entire magnetic field shield of the planet. That is our protector from the sun, from so many things, even gamma radiation, right? So that means that there will be periods when the poles change where nothing on this planet is protected from whatever is coming in. That is why there has been a study, and they say that there could be something like 242,000 cases of skin cancer increase a year during the period of time that the magnetic fields will be erratic as the poles change. Now, would this phenomena of a pole change produce these bizarre sounds? There is this industrialist in the oil and gas industry. He thinks the answer is yes. And he gives all the reasons why in a two-part series I did at Earth Files this past summer. And the reasoning has to do with the core structure. The inner core of the Earth is a very specific kind of hexagonal shaped iron. And it is inside of another core that is a little bit more liquid. So the inner core is turning one direction. The outer, more liquid core is turning another. That is what's called the dynamo. That's why we have these strong magnetic fields that protect our Earth. Then you come to the magma, and then you get up to this thin rind that is where we are, that would be just the tiniest, like the skin on an orange on the Earth where we are. And that the hypothesis of this industrialist is that the changes that are going on in the core of the Earth, if in fact we are leading to a magnetic pole flip, have to do with expansion and contraction at the molecular and atomic level. It's a little hard to get my mind, anybody's mind around this, but think that we're going down into the atomic level where the atoms of iron are literally, each individual atom is changing its north-south. That's what makes the big planet change. And in the process of all of this changing of north to south at the atomic level, it is causing certain kinds of expansions in between the two cores, and that there are big, huge crystal lattices down there that can snap, and the snap can be conducted through the magma to the crust. That's his hypothesis. This is not proved. Well, if in the end, like we may have to get to New Year's Day 2100, if the poles do change from 90 to 100 years from now, then these sounds should increase. They should keep increasing. And what we are in a kind of strange twilight zone in all of this is that they've been being reported. They are called anomalous. There are scientists who have been interviewed about what could be making this. Most of them just brush it off as nothing. And from my point of view, I think all of us who are trying to pay attention to the true mysteries of this planet that are going on beyond the 6 o'clock news, this could be one of the most significant data points right now in the 21st century of this change that's leading up to poles changing. This is going to be a big deal.
Oh, huge.
And we should be at least reporting what people are hypothesizing could be happening so that people are not totally shocked. So that's what I'm trying to do in my work. And can I prove that Chicago and Kentucky and Florida and Kansas in the last 72 hours are tied into more of this occurring because of an upcoming pole change? I can't. No, neither can the industrialists. But you guys, this is happening to real people. These are widespread events. They are being reported to police and authorities.
All over the world.
And now you know that one sheriff is trying to say that it's two guys target practicing, and that is how desperate authorities in the United States and this world are to stay away from these unexplained phenomena.
Are you familiar with the hypothesis that when the magnetic north and the true north meets, that the poles will flip? And they've tried to do some earthquakes on the tectonic plates in the Pacific. Some feel it was an 88-day cycle, like down in Chile and up in Alaska and such, to try and separate the true north from the magnetic north to keep this from happening. Are you familiar with that hypothesis?
No, I know the difference between magnetic and pole, though.
Yeah.
No, I've never heard of trying to deal with a convergence of those two. No, I have not.
Because I've heard about on one of the shows that, either Coast to Coast or Caravan to Midnight, someone came on and elaborated on it, and they've been successful thus far. So...
Is that like putting a Band-Aid on a train wreck? Though?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Probably. I really just try to focus with the best scientists in a discipline that I possibly can, knowing that scientists don't have all the answers either. But I would rather interview people who have spent their lives studying something, even if they are not incorporating UFOs, ETs, other dimensions, timelines, areas that you and I are prepared to go because there are people discussing that. But I think that if we stay grounded in the hard data of science, and then we step or bring into focus through that lens, like what has happened in Chicago yesterday and these other places, that we have a stronger context in which to discuss this. And that's why I just try very hard to stay in what we'll call the so-called academic disciplines.
Well, I'm surprised that nobody's not blamed climate change for this.
We actually have a question from the chat room, and I'd like to ask you. The release of uric energy precedes the release of seismic energy. What is the track speed of magnetic north, real time?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either.
There you go. That answered that real quick.
I do know
go ahead.
that over the last 45 years, that the magnetic pole north has been moving at quite a trek, going toward Siberia. And 10 years ago, I did an interview with a seismologist in Florida when they had to repaint the airport north-south orientations because there had been so much change at an airport in Florida. And first thing I asked him is Florida connected to what is happening in the North Pole? He said, no, absolutely not. He said, you can have sections of the planet that will have magnetic field changes, and they are just focused in certain areas because it could be lava coming up below, some sort of a regional change. But when it comes to the globe, the Siberian trek from magnetic north going to Siberia, he said, have been studied quite a bit, and that I've never heard anybody argue with this ever, that they have found that there is a huge plume of mantle, the lava coming up in Siberia, and that it has been rising slowly and spreading over the last 45 years as the magnetic field has been going toward it. And that would explain why magnetic field north has been moving towards Siberia.
So having the equator have you noticed less or more noise from or booms from that area, or more to the north or more to the south? Since the equator is kind of neutral, I guess.
In the middle.
I would say 70% of all of the reports that I've gotten since 2011 are from the United States and Canada. Now, I don't know if that's because I'm here and it's people just think to get in touch with me and the rest of the world doesn't as much, but I do get periodic reports. And it may be that there is something that is localized, let's say, to the Western Hemisphere in North America about what is happening. It could be. And that the other locations, when they occur, may be an offshoot of what is happening under the what would be the Western Hemisphere plate. But then let's go to one of the most extraordinary of all time. And it happened let's see, I believe it was back in the January, February time period this year. It was Buffalo, New York. They had thousands of people in a wide region suddenly reporting booms and scraping sounds all at once. And if I recall, it was something like 5:42 or 52 p.m. Eastern time. At what would be the same time on the other side of the Atlantic, going from London to Scotland, they had thousands of people reporting booms in the UK. So we're not talking about 6 or 8 hours later.
Right.
We mean simultaneously.
Simultaneously.
Yeah, that if it was
two sides of the Atlantic.
If it was 5:45 in Buffalo, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 in the I think it was early spring. I think it may have been 11 o'clock in England. So it happened simultaneously. And when people began, the UK press and the American press began to realize that these were booms and metallic sounds that were being heard on two sides of the Atlantic, 3,000 miles apart, or whatever that distance is, simultaneously, that raises the ante.
Yeah, it does.
Big time.
This whole huge, baffling mystery.
Sure does.
Well, I've got a more elementary hypothesis here, and that is, I'm curious about a couple of different elements. First of all, it's feeling to me, Linda, like water, whether it's the ocean or whatever, is a little bit of a predominant common denominator with a lot of the states and the countries that we're hearing about this booming sound, as well as the metallic frequency that we're talking about.
Well, Kentucky's not anywhere surrounded by water, and Kentucky has probably had more cycles in my memory of booms that were heard from, say, from Louisville down to Fort Knox, or Fort Knox to, a big region. And that I remember one was a man wrote me and said, I watched my 3 big dogs literally start going crazy. When those of us who were sitting around for breakfast, we had no idea the dogs went crazy. And the next thing after the dogs, they were big dogs, and they'd never seen the dogs ever do this. They were barking. One of them was, I think, was going up against the wall or the door. And then they watched all of these 3 dogs run and get under a bed in a bedroom. And in all the times that they had ever had these dogs, they had never seen that. And then what happens? Boom, boom. There was this huge, the floor shook, and there were 3 or 4 people in the family. And I got to talk, I think, with 2 of them, and they all were really shaken by this. And that was the one where somebody was upstairs as well. So the upstairs was shaking, the downstairs was shaking, the windows were shaking, and the dogs ran under the bed. Now, Kentucky has persistently had a lot of this dramatic, we'll call it booms, metallic scrapings. Tennessee, which is very close by,
It's right next door.
is one of the states where I have had several of the trumpets. And when people, these are people that, they're down to earth. They might work in the local banks. They're newspaper deliverers. There's nobody who wants some publicity.
Right.
These are people who get in touch with me and they say, please help me understand what happened at 3:00 this morning. I was in downtown Memphis and I was delivering papers, and all of a sudden these trumpets filled the air with this musical sounds, and it went on for 5 minutes. And he said, it scared the hell out of me. And he said, in another weird thing, he said, I know it's 3 a.m., but he said, you would think there would be some traffic. And he said there was nothing but one car that came down the street and slowed down, and he thought that they were going to stop the car and get out because it was close to him, like, what's going on? And they kept on driving. He felt eerily isolated and not understanding what was happening. And he's a very bright man, had a musical background, and he tried to say, I was not listening to one tone, one note. He said this was complex. It was trumpet-like, and it had multiple chord frequencies that went on for 5 minutes. That is not something that a kid or a teenager or a prankster is going to generate and have it happen to people all over the world. How would they do that?
Wow.
Go ahead, Eddie.
No, I keep getting this intuitive image that there is something above the earth, really, like, close. I believe in spaceships and flying saucers, and I've seen them. And one of the things that was the most profound for me with UFOs were 3 V-shaped ships when I was in the 7th and 8th grade that they were flying lower than a football field. That's how low they were. And it was me and a whole bunch of neighborhood kids and some adults too. Now, we were throwing potatoes at it, but that's another story.
Throwing potatoes at it, yeah.
Because we were poor, and, it is what it is. But they were 3 V-shaped ships traveling in a V formation. They were making no sounds whatsoever.
And what year was that again?
That was
1880.
Oh. Okay, Wilma, you can't come back. It was 74, 75.
Well, that was, if you said in the United States in the 20th century.
In North Carolina.
What period of time had the most phenomena from animal mutilations, human abductions, triangles, cylinders, discs, and clearly government cover? It would be from approximately 1973 to about 1980. There was a 7-year period where everything was happening. And the sheriffs themselves, Sheriff Tex Graves in Colorado said to me, the mutilations started for us in 73. And he said by 75, that was the peak. And they were going out. This is hard to imagine. They were getting calls, like in Logan County, where Sheriff Tex Graves was, 3 mutilations a day. They were getting to animals warm to touch. The veterinarians would say that they were dead only maybe 3 hours at most. And there was not a drop of blood anywhere on any of the excisions.
I know you've...
No tracks around the animal's body. So how else can they get there, one sheriff said to me, unless something has raised them up and put them down.
Yeah.
From the
I know you extensively researched this and how you started in some respects. Can you briefly elaborate what you think they're all from?
Well, it was
or some of them.
It was the sheriffs and the deputies who said, Linda, the perpetrators are creatures from outer space. Yeah. They're the first ones who said that to me. And so when I was producing A Strange Harvest as a hard-nosed investigative TV producer who my background at Stanford University was producing, writing, directing, editing, and reporting in science and medicine, and that is what I came into everything with a left brain investigative analytical approach. And to have law enforcement sitting across from me at the beginning of the fall of 1979 saying that the animal mutilations that they were dealing with all over were the perpetrators were creatures from outer space, that hit me like a 220-volt circuit. I had to go through that Alice in Wonderland mirror to the other side. Today, There's not a single question in my mind. Animal mutilations are one of the most sensitive subjects for our government, because when they go there, they are going to one of the needs of extraterrestrials on this planet, which is genetic material. There is, I think it's self-evident that if there have been 10, 20, 30,000 animals in the last 60 years that have been subjected to mutilation, that has not happened to humans. And that means that a distinction is being made between the animals and humans. And I've been out in pastures by myself, literally, whether it was England or Canada or the United States, even down in Australia. And I have done lots of investigations by myself, and I'm still here. If the phenomena, the intelligence wanted me gone, they could have done it so easy.
Right.
So I try to tell people, I've said this to ranchers, you've had 12 mutilations, and you've had 12 mutilations in a year. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 a month, sometimes it's 1 a month. But nothing's happened to your families. Nothing's happened to your children. Nothing's happened to the other animals. Take heart in that I don't know of anything else happening except for a focus on some bloodlines of horses, cattle, sheep, goats, pigs, chickens, a few marmots, ducks, deer, and elk. Those are the animals that I know have been found bloodlessly mutilated. And that we have to grow up, and we can only grow up in many ways. And when the government, not just our government, but all governments, level with the entire planet, that we're not alone in this universe and never have been. And now it's time to tell you what we know. And they can say this in a way that is palatable to the media and the public, given we have tried to protect you for 68 years or whatever it is since the 40s, and that we now can stand in front of you in the press conference of all centuries and say, we are not alone, and we are pretty certain that we have some allies, and that the humans of the earth are not in jeopardy, that we actually are dealing with extraterrestrials who have survival problems. And that in the context of your wonderful truth, if you have the truth, you can stand on some solid ground that isn't going to wash away under your feet, and that you can be stronger, not weaker. And that if the whole planet would get on that square, and we could deal with everything for what it really is, and not 2 guys shooting target practice in Chicago, or a weather balloon or swamp gas, that we are dealing with phenomena that we need to have honest answers about. I think then the planet might have a chance to get past its own self-destructive nature. But the way things are going now, it's as if there is almost a determination by some of the people in the Middle East, Russia, Turkey, and that area, that they want this to go to war, like a major war.
Somebody wants a war. I've stated that for a week now. I agree with you. Somebody wants a war.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
everything in me is that all the rest of us, the 99.99% of the planet that does not want any war, and I think the percentage is that high. It's only a small, 100, 200 people on the planet who would be pushing for a war. Are there intelligences that have been involved in the evolution of this planet for centuries who are watching now more carefully, because there is something about this moment in the timeline that is critical? If humanity, if the 99.99% can help that 100 or 200 avoid going into war that could end up being nuclear attack, and then we're all screwed. If that can be avoided, it may be that something is just waiting for this moment in timeline, and if we get past this, it may finally be the evolution toward all headlines everywhere. We're not alone in this universe. There are other intelligences. And then you get to the fascinating interview that I did. It was in August, I believe, with Lynn Buchanan. John Burroughs from the RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge Phenomena from December 1980 and I are doing a series of radio programs on KGRA digital broadcasting called Phenomena Radio. Mm-hmm. And we are, the arc of all of the work we've been doing is everything's grounded in RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, but that has 1,000 facets to it. And so we keep working each week through different subjects and different people. And one of them was the remote viewers. Have remote viewers for the government, did they remote view Rendlesham Forest, RAF Bentwaters Woodbridge, because it is so baffling what happened in that forest to all these men, including John Burroughs, who was twice engulfed in light and seen engulfed in light by people who were around him. And Lynn, it turns out, John Burroughs got an email saying, you need to see the Lynn Buchanan remote viewing session from 1986, when he was working with Mel O'Reilly and Pat Price and these very talented remote viewers who had, many of them had trained under Ingo Swann. And Ingo Swann was the first very talented one, working with Hal Puthoff and others at Stanford University, where I did my master's work, and they were working in Stanford Research Institute in the 1960s. And Ingo is the one who began developing the protocols, how to teach talented people who could access in controlled remote viewing. And eventually the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is a cousin or brother of the National Security Agency and the Central Intelligence Agency and the National Reconnaissance, those are the big four that are also involved up to their ears in ET stuff. The National Security Agency has that big, beautiful, shiny building on Fort Meade in Maryland. Well, in the starting in I think it was 84 to 1992, with official dollars coming from the Defense Intelligence Agency, but on NSA Fort Meade ground, down at one end from the shiny NSA building, they were put in barracks. There were about 7 or 8 of these talented remote viewers, one of which was Lynn Buchanan. And one day he had gotten what they call task. And the task was, they did it by latitude and longitude. So when I say this, they didn't have a type sheet that says remote view Rendlesham Forest. That it's a latitude longitude on a 3x5 card in an envelope that gets put on the middle of a desk. And the only person there's only one person in the whole planet who knows what that latitude longitude links to. And that is the person who is guiding the remote viewer. And it turns out, though, that this was Rendlesham Forest. And the entire session was transcribed and quietly and surreptitiously released in 2008 by the Central Intelligence Agency at their website. So they're on NSA land. They're getting their paychecks from the Defense Intelligence Agency in barracks on the Fort Meade land where NSA is, but it is the CIA that put the Lynn Buchanan remote viewing of Rendlesham Forest on the CIA website officially in 2008. How this all works behind the scenes between the alphabet soup agencies, who knows? But this is what's so critical. Lynn really got into a depth like a depth and a perception of what had happened in Rendlesham Forest that involved the craft, the triangular craft that Jim Pennison touched the symbols, having an incubator with
Right.
life looking to deposit it. That led us at Phenomena Radio to interview Lynn. I put up sections and we discussed whole sections of the remote viewing. And then in the process of doing that, I interviewed Lynn and I said, did you get any other official tasks about ETs? He said, many. And he said one of the most interesting ones was they asked me to remote view ETs in 4 categories: friendly, unfriendly, psychic, non-psychic.
Oh, shit.
And he said he had a grid. And in his remote viewing, he laughed. He said, Linda, we talk about 3 or 5 different extraterrestrial groups involved with Earth. He laughed and he said, there are hundreds and hundreds in this universe. And he said, and there are friendly psychics, friendly unpsychics, unfriendly psychics, unfriendly non-psychics. The ones that are most dangerous, of course, would be the unfriendly psychics, because they would manipulate minds for nefarious reasons. And when Lynn, we're talking about this critical point in the timeline on this Earth, and where are things going to be going over the next 10 to 20 years? Lynn thinks that this is it. This is the pivotal crossroads for all of human evolution. If Homo sapien has been here for the last 25 to 30,000 years, with Neanderthal type before, and we can keep going back to Lucy in Africa 2 million years ago. There have been all these models of standing up primates, and we're the latest model. Lynn says in remote viewing that between 2016 and 2026, those 10 years are absolutely like if you had the old analogy of doors closing, and that they're literally, those doors closing are closing down to a timeline that will determine what happens on this planet forever. It's like something this significant. And he thinks that there's either one or two things are going to happen. We're either going to get past this critical moment where potential destruction is everywhere and he sees it, or in 10 years, the population of the Earth will be hugely small.
Reduced.
Now, 10 years ago was 2005. That doesn't seem like very long ago, does it?
No.
2005, 15 or 16, we're going to be at New Year's Day 2016 in just 3-4 weeks. So 2016 to 2026, those are the bookends. And here you, I, and everybody is feeling that we're on a planet in which this tiny percentage of something, whatever they are, wants war.
Yep.
It is in my own mind, looking at all of this with the booms, the scrapings, the trumpets, the possible pole shift, global weather, we are on a warming planet. If you take the politics out of it, we're on a warming planet. It's going to continue to warm. And if you look at what the current scientists around the world in 9 laboratories, they are not bound to anything going on in the United States. There are 9 climate laboratories. They are in Japan and Australia and New Zealand and South America and Canada and the United States and Europe. They're all over the place. And I do not think that those 9 different climate laboratories are going to be easily manipulated by one force that says, this is what you're going to report. My experience with the vast majority of scientists, I'm going to just say a declarative sentence. They are honest people. They are struggling to go after the pressure of facts, something I respect so much. They don't like politics. They don't want to be involved in politics. They want to explore data. They want to report trends. And they want to do this, most of them, because they actually care about what happens to this planet. Because, as one scientist said to me, it's an old cliche, but Linda, it is so true. This is the only spacecraft we have. Now, we may have this launch to Mars, and that may happen in 2026. And it will be the first Earth, we'll call it like when the wagons went from the East Coast to the West. Yeah. This will be the same kind of thing. Well, if we end up destroying a lot of the planet in a sixth mass extinction that is largely human caused, Mars may be the only back door. As tentative as that is, as fragile as that is, Mars may be the only back door we ever have. So when you look at everything that is occurring, it's as if the government is getting its cake and eating it too. The policies of strict denial that we are alone in the universe, there are no ETs, everything is two men target practicing. That while they could have military installations on Mars right now in a lava tube and have had it there since 1980, I've been told that. And that would have meant that the rovers and Curiosity and the observers and everything, it might explain why there have been some whistleblowers who have said NASA has photoshopped some of the images. And everybody would say, well, why would NASA do such a thing? Well, I have seen images and talked about them with Photoshop experts that I've had, and they say this sure does look photoshopped. Well, if we've had a military contingency in a lava tube, the way it was explained to me was by somebody who worked at White Sands, and they wanted me to know, Linda, we've got a unit, it's underground, it's in a lava tube. The lava tubes are great. They're going to be great facilities, whether we move civilization to Mars or not, explaining what they had to do. And then just the idea that our planet, Earth, had people that were going to make sure that there were survivors in Mars, no matter what happened here, also parallels something else where I and others have had whistleblowers telling us since at least the early 1990s is when it began for me, that our government has had some kind of information, whether from time travelers, and I mean it literally, time travelers, extraterrestrial biological entities, or other dimensional communication, that we would not get out of the 21st century without catastrophic events. And if efforts to get to Mars, and it's now, have you guys been noticing that CNN, Fox, all of the different news stations, they have commercials now where you hear a woman's voice saying, oh, my children are going to grow up to go have a chance to go to Mars. And you hear this light, fluffy commercials now. And I'm thinking, this is calculated. This is a calculated strategy. The Earth is being conditioned that we're going to be on Mars. That's what's happening, whether we're already there or not. And that in that conditioning, it means that somebody has been looking already for back doors for us. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Oh, definitely.
It's as if they know that there's something hugely critical about this time. And then juxtapose all of this to interview that I just did 2 weeks ago with Professor Michael Rampino, New York University, who's been working with another geologist, geophysicist at Carnegie. And they have been working hard on what has caused cyclic catastrophes on this planet. And the data that they've been crunching is the best, most refined data on crater impact. We'll call it cycles of crater impact on this planet. They've had the best data they've ever had. And they put it into computers and they went back, their study went back 260 million years. There has been another study that's gone back 500 million years. And they're finding this pulse. It's like the and this is the point of the whole paper. It was in the September 2015 monthly letters of the Royal Astronomical Society. That's where this particular Rampino Caldera paper was published. And when they go back with the data, they find, if you go back 26 to 30 million years, let's say we're my hands there, and then they go to another 20, it's down, up, that our solar system rides like a horse on a carousel. It's going up and down, up and down. And what is the midline of those ups and downs? If you could extend 12 million years ago was the last time we were head on, just like headlights coming right into our eyes, we were right straight on the mid plane of the Milky Way galaxy. And what they are hypothesizing, and they're not alone in this, and there are multiple cycles, which may be important to the whole issue of what happens this century and next. But on this 26 to 30 million year cycle, there is more dust, more matter, and now the hypothesis is a layer of dark matter that goes between the upper and the lower halves. If you had the center of the Milky Way galaxy is a sphere. And Lisa Randall at Harvard University has a beautiful book out now called Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs. These are both similar points of view. So you've got this big sphere at the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and it has dark matter around it, and it has a layer. Anything that then ends up from the core out to the arm that we're in, every 26 to 30 million years, the amount of gravitational tug is going to be the strongest of all time. And when the dark matter and the matter at the center of the galaxy are sort of, we'll say, pulling strings on other matter out in the Milky Way galaxy, our arm, where we are, we have a huge sphere around our solar system called the Kuiper Belt and the Oort cloud.
Yes.
Extends out like a light year. And in there, in the Oort cloud, is the origin of all the comets. So now, Lisa Randall at Harvard and Michael Rampino and Caldera, they're saying that you combine dark matter with matter, and you've got enough tug to start jostling all these computers out here in the Oort cloud, and this is the correct way for physicists to say this is what happens. The comets fall into the sun because the sun is the strongest mass, matter, gravitational pull in our solar system. And that this going up and down, we have a cycle where there's going to be cataclysms on this planet because of this. Are there other smaller refined cycles that relate to something else? There's a whole lot of people that are looking at bigger and smaller cycles that could explain some of these devastations. And the fascinating thing that's come out of the work that Lisa Randall has been doing at Harvard, her book, I'm looking at the cover right now, Dark Matter and the Dinosaurs, the astounding interconnectedness of the universe, just came out, this book. And she says that when you look at 85% of all matter in the universe, astrophysicists now think is in this dark matter category, which has been so mysterious. And some people have said, oh, it doesn't exist. People are just making this up. She makes a very compelling case for a sandwich Milky Way galaxy with this dark matter, why it would have more gravitational. There you go. And she proposes, this is set my mind on fire. She proposes that dark matter might radiate a different kind of photon that we cannot see. We're in a universe where at night we see stars because the photons literally leave all of these suns in our Milky Way And the photons actually touch our retinas in our eyes when we see starlight. That you are physically connected through the photons.
So it goes through our atmosphere.
And the day we see the sunlight, we see the sun. These are visible photons, and as Einstein would say, they are the maximum speed of this particular universe, the speed of light. Well, what she's saying is, Professor Randall even proposes that dark matter might radiate a different kind of photon that we cannot see, but that visible photons and dark matter photons might be the key to how interconnected every element in our universe is, and that all humans are intimately linked with the web of life and non-human life. And when you step back from all of this and you say, every atom of your body, my body, the plants, the animals, the water, we're now in inorganic, with everything out to the ends of this 13.9 billion light year universe is connected. How can we have so much destruction, self-destruction, and violence on this planet?
Wow, you're just blowing our minds here. I mean, this is great. This is great stuff, and I think what we're going to do is Oh no, it's very exciting because I think if people know about this, then we can contribute.
More aware.
Yeah, we can contribute to helping the cause.
Yes.
So let's take just about a minute break. When we come back, while we're diving into the Milky Way, how about we talk about some of the megastructures that you've been researching? And I think that's a great transition into that segment. So this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet.
I'm Eddie Connor.
And I'm Walt Lusk.
And we're listening. We're
with Dame Linda Moulton Howe.
The famed Linda Moulton Howe. And we're so excited to have her with us. We're going to just take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk more with Linda. So don't go anywhere.
Don't leave town.
Yeah, don't leave town. This is Truth Be Told with Tony and Eddie. Be right back.